I just feel like every day it's like they just like pick on me and I just can't do it anymore.
Bro, what is going on? Travis, bro, what are you doing? Holy shit, dude, I think he's lost it.
Kourtney Kardashian just dropped a line on camera that reads like a cheat code for every gossip column and podcast host who lives to parse a 5-second confessional. Her husband, Travis Barker, is a little bit more impulsive, she said, quietly, matter-of-factly, and the room of millions got louder.
What are you doing? Where are you taking all this stuff? Bro, you're tripping us out. What is going on?
That single casual observation does more work than it should. It explains public fireworks, it explains the speed of their romance, and it explains the way their marriage is framed as both a fairy tale and a spectacle. You don't need a scandal to make noise when the couple themselves normalize volatility as personality, and that normalization is what turns private marital tempo into a cultural product. Listen, celebrity admissions work on 2 levels. There's the human level reading, 2 people trying to figure out how to coexist when one of them wants to live life at a sprint and the other is visibly trying to slow the soundtrack down. And then there's the industrial reading, which is all about how that admission fits neatly into a content narrative. Kourtney's confessional about pace and impulsivity lands as intimate, but also as perfectly edited material for the Kardashians. A soft moment that doubles as a headline. It's understated on the surface and ruthless as a brand move underneath, because nothing valuable in this orbit is left purely private. Think about what the word impulsive actually telegraphs. In the public imagination, impulsive equals romantic gesture, last-minute tattoo, surprise proposal, sold-out stadium cameo, and then, in darker reruns, impulsive can also equal boundary crossing, spontaneous drama, and 1,000 tabloid-friendly permutations. When a famous woman says her husband is impulsive, it doesn't land in a vacuum. It opens a doorway to the couple's catalog of public choices and invites retroactive sense-making. The late-night runs, the spur-of-the-moment tour stops, the tattoos, the headline-grabbing gestures. That's why Kourtney mentions that small truth matters. It lets the audience fill in the blanks with a film montage of moments we've already consumed. Kourtney's line was also strategically soft. She doesn't weaponize the word. She frames it as an energetic difference. He tries to squeeze in as much as he can into a day, she says, and that phrasing does a lot of heavy lifting. It humanizes impulsivity as urgency, as zest, as someone trying to wring life's juice out of every hour. That's a kinder framing than reckless. And in media terms, it's safer. It allows fans to root for the dramatics while keeping the moral panic on a low simmer. That's a classic Kardashian move. Reveal enough to stoke interest, withhold enough to keep the narrative malleable. We should also read this line as part of a larger evolution in how the couple is presented. Opposites as a selling point. The slow Kourtney and fast Travis axis is a tidy story that simplifies the messy reality of 2 adults with complicated histories and 7 kids between them. It's tidy because it makes conflict digestible and palatable for an audience that wants narratives that resolve on camera, or at least tease the possibility of resolution over the arc of a season. But that tidy framing also glosses over deeper power dynamics that lurk when one partner's impulses consistently set the tempo for the family. That's where the cultural stakes live. Not in the cute workout footage, but in how celebrity parenting, boundaries, and image are packaged for public approval. Don't sleep on the family logistics angle. Kourtney and Travis aren't just a married couple. They're a blended family CEO operation, juggling 7 kids and public personae that are aggressively curated. Blending a household of that size is not a reality show subplot. It's a real structural shift that requires boundaries, schedules, and compromise. When Kourtney talks about balancing slowing her life down with doing all the things he wants to do, she's hinting at the friction points that exist when 2 very different lifestyle management philosophies collide under one roof and under the public's microscope. That detail, the domestic truth, is heavy. It reframes impulsivity away from mere personality color and towards something that affects children, routines, and emotional labor. There's a long history of celebrity couples getting romanticized for their differences, and that history usually forks into two narratives: the love story and the cautionary tale. The love story sells magazines and brand deals. The cautionary tale fuels think pieces and late-night monologues. Kourtney's line gives both narratives oxygen. Fans who want to believe in destiny will lean into the opposites attract mythology. Critics will bookmark the line and watch for moments that fit their thesis about imbalance or instability. Celebrity culture thrives on that split because it expands the universe of conversation, and engagement equals currency in this industry. Look, Travis's public life is full of high-energy choices, and that history makes the label impulsive read as credible. We've seen a career built on punk vitality, and that persona naturally spills into private life in ways that become content. Kourtney calling that out is not an accusation so much as a naming of style. But names have power, and in this case, naming helps audiences make sense of why sometimes the Kardashian household appears like a social media highlight reel, and other times like a soap opera. We consume the tension. They supply the material. It's worth pausing on how the couple uses shared projects and public appearances to construct a narrative of mutual support. The two ran a 5K together, hand in hand, sweaty palms and all, a visually perfect clip for family-friendly branding that simultaneously plays to their fitness obsessions and their co-parenting optics. It's the kind of wholesome content that neutralizes gossip and reminds the audience that, at least on the surface, they show up for each other. Strategic balancing act? Absolutely. Genuine connection? Probably. But in this economy of attention, authenticity is curated, and every public show of solidarity doubles as damage control and PR. And then there's the editing. The Kardashians have a talent for making private accelerations look like narrative beats. When Kourtney reflects in a confessional about pace and comfort, we're watching an edited truth, a sentence chosen to perform a function in a story arc. That editorial choice is powerful because it gives the couple control over the framing. Instead of the press deciding impulsivity is a headline, Kourtney places that word gently, calibrating public perception on her terms. It's a savvy play that keeps the conversation on their channel, with their preferred emotional valence. Dig deeper and you see the historical echoes. Celebrity marriages that hinge on kinetic energy eventually face a reality check. Kids have schedules, therapists want stability, and brands want dependability. The impulsive partner trope reads differently when children enter the frame. What might be quirky in a dating relationship becomes consequential when it affects school runs, medical appointments, and emotional safety. Kourtney's acknowledgement, casual as it is, hints at an awareness that the spectacle has consequences. That's the ethical dimension that often gets lost in the glamour. Kourtney's mention of comfort at home versus Travis's desire to do all the things is also a narrative about career tempo. She's a mother and media figure who has deliberately dialed parts of her life into quieter modes, while he's a performer who benefits from being everywhere. That difference shapes their public rhythms. She can be the anchor for domestic stability, he can be the perimeter fireworks, but that division of labor can calcify into expectations. And celebrity marriages that rely on such divisions are at risk when one partner's tempo continually overrides the other's needs. The net result is a public image that looks glossy until someone decides it's not. The family blending narrative is not new for them. The couple has been candid about how merging their 7 kids took adjustment and renovation of their daily lives. That practical detail punctures the glossy veneer. This is not just 2 lovers on a red carpet, it's a blended household that required logistical rethinking and emotional labor. Kourtney admitting it took a lot of adjusting is telling because it's both vulnerable and hegemonic. Vulnerable in that it admits strain, Hegemonic in that it positions her as the managerial heart of the home, which in turn feeds into familiar gendered scripts. Celebrity confessions like this walk a tightrope between empowerment and emotional commodification. Let's call the cultural stakes what they are. When a profile of domestic reality becomes mainstream entertainment, audiences start outsourcing their moral reasoning about family life to the producers who cut the footage. That has real implications. Caregivers who set boundaries get framed as controlling, fast-paced partners get romanticized as free-spirited, and kids in these households become collateral in a story that is engineered to maximize drama and ad revenue. Kourtney's throwaway line exists inside that engine. It's both a human truth and a fuel injection into the content machine. Now, pivot to optics. Celebrities who trade in impulsivity often do so because sudden choices make headlines. Surprise performances, unplanned tattoos, cameo appearances at events. These gestures build a reputation for unpredictability that can be monetized. Travis is, by trade and temperament, someone for whom spectacle is baseline. And Kourtney's observation is a polite acknowledgement that their marriage normalizes that rhythm. The question for critics is what normalized impulsivity looks like for the kids and for the longer-term emotional health of a family. For fans, it's thrilling. For public commentators, it's a story arc to interrogate. Here's the thing about marital narratives in the Kardashian era. Every seemingly private adjustment is currency. Kourtney giving space for Travis's energy gives them content and gives the public a moral sandbox in which to play. But it also forces fans to vote with their attention. Do you celebrate his spontaneity and see her as accommodating? Or do you interpret the same behavior as a sign that one partner is constantly adapting at the expense of their own comfort? The ambiguity is where engagement lives, and ambiguity is the whole business model. Let's also talk about the self-branding element. Kourtney's public persona has been carefully sculpted. Anti-glamour glamour, wellness-first minimalism, a domestic fortress of curated calm. Travis's brand, on the other hand, is high decibel and visible. When the couple appears together, they perform a reconciliation of two aesthetics, and that performance is a product. Kourtney owning her discomfort and framing his impulsivity as a balancing act is brilliant branding because it reaffirms her image while allowing him to remain the headline generator. That kind of mutually beneficial display keeps the ecosystem humming. And we cannot ignore the mechanics of editing and selective storytelling. The Kardashians' editors pick lines and stitch them into arcs that make sense to a viewing public eager for both redemption and dissent. Kourtney's confessional works because it's placed where it will maximize resonance with themes already present in the season. Parenting, loyalty, personal evolution. It's the director's cut of intimacy, polished and purpose-built to catalyze conversation across platforms. Now, inject some broader family drama for context. The Kardashian clan is not a static backdrop. It's an active, sometimes volatile ecosystem. Lawsuits, feuds, public reckonings, and those larger currents affect how Kourtney and Travis's admission is received. When one family member is involved in legal drama or public controversy, every other confession or clip gets reinterpreted through that prism. That's why references to sibling disputes or legal battles matter. They alter the tenor of what might otherwise be a minor human observation. When the family's headline is a lawsuit, small confessions feel heavier. Consider the recent legal scraps sending waves through the family narrative, a reminder that even when one sister chooses quiet, the family machine churns on multiple fronts. This thumbnail of legal conflict changes the optics around Kourtney's line. What once read as a personal admission now sits among litigation and public defense strategies, and the family's PR choreography suddenly has a wider stage. That's the landscape these confessions float in. Never purely private, always interstitial to a family apparatus that manages reputation as a near constant. Back to the couple. The choreography of showing up for each other is also a practiced performance. running a race hand in hand, attending each other's events, celebrating birthdays. These are affection gestures and also strategic visibility plays. They signal stability even as the confession about impulsivity allows room for acceptable chaos. The paradox is delicious. They model unity while admitting volatility. And that contradiction is exactly what keeps the narrative alive on feeds and in headlines. It's honesty with a clear PR filter. There's also generational resonance here. Older audiences who remember the era before social media see impulsivity as romanticized chaos. Younger audiences see it as content potential. The same act is a throwback in one frame and a content strategy in another. Kourtney's family-grown fame lets them deploy the old myths while simultaneously using modern attention economics to monetize the tensions those myths create. The cultural effect? We get to cosplay intimacy while the real work of boundaries and parenting happens out of frame. And let's not forget how the children figure into the tableau. For kids raised in the spotlight, the line between performance and reality blurs fast. Being in a household that is part production studio, part family home creates developmental realities that are less like traditional upbringing and more like long-form docuseries. That complicates the implications of impulsive as a personality trait. It matters when decisions ripple across school calendars, therapy sessions, and custody arrangements. Kourtney naming that tension quietly is the rare moment where the camera reflects some of the domestic complexity most reality TV glosses over. On the topic of image, impulsivity and responsibility play different roles for public-facing partners. Travis's spontaneity is an asset to his career. It reinforces his punk ethos and keeps him newsworthy. Kourtney's steadiness is her brand. It reassures sponsors and fans that there's a stable nucleus amid the spectacle. The marriage, then, is a microeconomy of brand exchange. Each partner's temperament is a commodity that they barter publicly, and that exchange is negotiated in confessional soundbites and strategic appearances. Culturally, what does it mean when we normalize impulsivity as part of a romantic package? It tells younger audiences that drama is tolerable if it's paired with enough charm and product alignment. It tells media outlets that confessions about tempo are reliable beats. It tells fans that love stories can be repackaged as content series without the messy consequences being fully interrogated. That's the peril. Normalizing certain behaviors within a glamorous frame risks softening public scrutiny. Kourtney's remark is gentle, but it's also an example of how celebrity vocabulary shifts social tolerance. Of course, there's a counter-argument. Maybe we're overreading a line from a reality show. Maybe it's a human-adjacent remark with no structural significance. That's a fair take, but it's not how media ecosystems work. In this arena, statements are repurposed, amplified, and woven into larger narratives that outlive their moments. Kourtney's comment didn't just describe her husband. It revised a public narrative and gave journalists and podcasters something to circle back to. Because ambiguity breeds conversation, and conversation feeds the celebrity economy. So what should we, as observers, be asking? We should be asking about the labor of blending families, about how public couples negotiate boundaries, and about how children's needs are prioritized amid publicity demands. We should ask what a sustainable pace looks like for families who are also brands. We should also ask whether a culture that rewards spectacle and spontaneity is ill-suited to the long-term maintenance of emotional stability, especially for the next generation growing up inside it. Those are the real questions lurking under a casual confession about impulse. Let's end with blunt cultural housekeeping. Kourtney's impulsive line is small but meaningful because it opens a window into how celebrity marriages are curated. It's also a reminder that in a world where every sentence can be an asset or a liability, couples are negotiating privacy and publicity in front of us. Some will call it branding genius. Others will call it emotional labor aired for clicks. Both readings are true, and both will continue to coexist as long as fame pays the bills and audiences keep watching. So here's the takeaway for viewers. Enjoy the romance, doubt the neatness, and remember that every confessional is edited. Kourtney's words are a human truth wrapped in a cultural product, and that wrapping is what makes it stick. If you care about how celebrity culture shapes norms, pay attention to the small descriptions. They're often the ones that become the templates for larger social scripts. Watch the gestures, read the edits, and keep asking who benefits from the stories we're given. If you like this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments whether you think Impulse is romantic or risky. And while you're at it, tell me which celebrity confession you think got weaponized into a narrative last year. Let's keep peeling back the layers, because when a superstar says one small, honest sentence on camera, it's never really small. It's the beginning of the next cultural conversation.